this passage is about a wee little man. Kids' church song? Anyone? Okay. Zacchaeus from Luke chapter 19, verses 1 through 10. And Jesus entered Jericho and made his way through the town. And there was a man there named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector in the region, and he had become very rich. He tried to get a look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd. Sorry. So he ran ahead, and he climbed a sycamore fig tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass that way. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called him by name. Called him by name. Zacchaeus, he said, quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today. Zacchaeus quickly climbed down, took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. But the people were displeased. The church folk were frowning. The church folk were like, well, don't you know he's a big fat sinner? What do you hang? He's gone to be the guest of a notorious sinner, they grumbled. Meanwhile, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord. You know, when people grumbling against you and about you, the best place you can be is standing before the Lord. And just let him handle it. Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, I will give half my wealth to the poor, Lord, and if I have cheated people on their taxes, which he had, I will give them back 4 times as much. Jesus responded, salvation has come to this home today, for this man has shown himself to be a true son of Abraham, which is a slap in the face of the folks that were grumbling against him. Verse 10, for the Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost. I love the story of Zacchaeus. It can be misunderstood, though. Some people who don't understand the whole context of Scripture could look at this and say, in verse 8, where he says that I will do these things, give money, so on and so forth, as if he's trying to buy salvation. But it was something that happened in the heart that manifested in action. It wasn't buying salvation, or it wasn't a works-based salvation. If you do this, this, and this, then you can be saved. Salvation has come to this home today. So we see an immediate life change. If you've ever been in the presence of Jesus, it's transformative. But you still have a choice on what you do with that, but it's powerful. But Zacchaeus responded in sacrificial worship, in life change. And Jesus recognized what was happening. He said, salvation is here. This is a true son of Abraham, which is the father of faith. We talked about that recently. And then Jesus says, and this is kind of an anthem for me. It's something that I'm passionate about, is the Son of Man, which is how Jesus often referred to himself, came to seek and save those that are lost. Do you know he's still doing that today? Do you know that he will leave the church behind and go find the lost sheep? Say, you all do your thing, but I got some work to do. I want us to be a people that join him in seeking the lost. I think that's our highest call. I think that we need to be a church that thinks outside the 4 walls. Or the 1, 2, 3, I don't know, this hexagon thing, whatever. But you know what I mean. But we need to be a church that's focused on this. Everything is so broken around us. We need to be a church that lives above that, but not separate from it, because we're targeting, we're reaching out, saying, come on out of the mess. Come on. And so it's very interesting in this passage, because in the previous chapter, we have the story of the rich young ruler who was very confident in his own goodness. Two rich men, two very different responses. And the rich young ruler was, I've done all these things, I'm good. And then when asked, because Jesus saw the idol that was in his heart, go sell what you have and give it to the poor and follow me, he walked away. But here Jesus didn't even ask anything. Zacchaeus is so grateful for his presence. He said, I'm just going to give it away. What was so valuable to me in the past is no longer important to me. I just want you. In this passage, the rich man knew that he was a sinner, and he welcomed salvation. You know, I've shared my testimony before. I was one of those notorious sinners. If I died, would I have gone to heaven? Honest answer is, I don't know, maybe. You know, I'd given my heart and life to the Lord at an early age. I had a couple of experiences, but I rebelled and I walked away. And so, you know, we don't preach a once saved, always saved message around here. Any theology that denies the free will of man is not a biblical one. And Paul talks about apostasy and so on. So there's always a choice. But all I know is that in college, the God that I had betrayed over and over again and had kept at arm's length came rushing in to bring grace at the first opportunity that he saw, the first crack in the armor that I had crafted for myself. He came in and he filled me. And like Zacchaeus, my God, everything I've been chasing doesn't come close to this, your presence. You know, he showed me grace and mercy all throughout, even my times of rebellion, times where partying, chasing girls, catching them. If not for the grace of God, I'm telling you, my life could look very different. And it should have looked different because of the sin I committed. It's only God's mercy that preserved me. So when I did experience that grace once more in college, I was transformed, but it wasn't all God. He gave me the moment in His presence, and it was wonderful, but I still made choices after that moment. I chose to respond. I chose to welcome Him in. I chose to turn my back on the way that I was living. I chose to change the music that I was listening to. I chose to stop drinking and listen, not out of legalism, but out of wanting to remove every hindrance and influence that could tear me away from His presence. It's not legalism. It's not a rule. I just wanted Him. And I had been pulled away so often before, I didn't want to do it anymore. And I even chose to seek out those that I had hurt and apologize to them. Just like in the passage of Zacchaeus, if I've cheated anyone, I'm going to repay them. That means going back to people that you've wronged and trying to make it right and saying, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I sinned against you. That's a humbling thing. I chose to recognize that I was not the center of the universe and that there's only one who deserves that place. You know, Zacchaeus, he grew up in a religious town, and he was familiar with all the terminology. He believed in God. He lived as the Lord of his own life, though, like so many today. You know, this area is filled with religiosity and morality. But is it filled with Jesus?